Hello, everyone. I'm Chad J. Willett, the host of the TV show Smash the Box, where we interview creative leaders from all different industries who disrupt their industries through the mindset they develop and, most importantly, execution. And today we got my friend, Mr. Todd Whiteman, the superintendent at Foxfire Schools. And there's no better man, at least in my opinion, who disrupts the education industry than Todd. So welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Chad. I'm excited.
I appreciate it. Yeah, as you know, we got a limited amount of time. We'll jump into it. And one of the first topics, Todd, I'd love to get your thoughts on. You and I talked a little bit about it yesterday, the students, and at Foxfire, I know, you have some at-risk students, right? And maybe, you told me something interesting yesterday. You were saying maybe a junior high is a turning point for some of those kids. They may go one direction or another. And as I was preparing for this interview, what I wanted to ask you about these students that you work with, your team, your teachers, your staff, it's like adversity. Right? It sounds like they have a lot of adversity, right? A lot of barriers they're overcoming or they're going into as a challenge. And I would love your thoughts. Yeah. How do you, these at-risk students, how do you motivate them, to get through whatever challenge they had? I know it's a lot for a lot of them. It's a tough challenge. Just how do they overcome these obstacles? That's the general question I'd like to start with.
Well, the first thing is that I use the phrase, we begin with the end in mind. When we get this kid, we know there's barriers, there's issues that they're facing. And, 100% of our kids are poverty based. They have at least 2 or 3 non-academic barriers. So when they show up on our doorstep, we know that there's some issues. Okay. And so when we begin with the end in mind is what do we want this to look like at the end of this thing? And, I think that the number one thing for me personally, as you and I talked yesterday, we all carry different crosses in our life. And I use crosses as adversity, right? And, or in today's world, drama, right? And some of those have been self-inflicted from some of the dumb things I've done myself. And some of it's just naturally as life progresses. But I believe that carrying those crosses and you talk about kids being broken, I've been broken myself. So I think that gives me a platform and a passion to connect those kids to help them find their way, right? We're all kind of lost sheep at some point, as you were talking a little bit about your acting career, and so that starts with that version of where do you begin with.
I love that. And that's, when you were talking, Todd, I wrote down end. You said the end in mind. And, just for the viewers out there, Todd and I talked about my acting career, and I was pretty candid with him. Yeah, when I was out in LA from 22 to 30, I struggled, most of it. It was a big struggle. And back to your, you kind of go with the end in mind. Is that like when you get those students come through your door, are you kind of thinking like, how are they going to look like as seniors, like when they graduate or, when they finish? Is that the end? Like you start there and then kind of work backwards to get them in that mindset?
Correct. Because each kid comes with a unique set of problems and issues and goals and interest and passions or lack of passions. And it's, what do you want it to look like? And the number one thing, we want kids to be happy. We want them to feel safe and feel connected. And we want them to feel supported. And the last thing is we want them to be independent, which is, as an educator, or even as a parent, that's a tough goal to do. We all want people to leave the nest and be highly functioning, productive citizens and happy and be happy with themselves and care. So we begin with the end in mind. That's the number one thing. And then obviously, the platform that we have is really simple in this aspect. We cater to at-risk youth. So we are like the ER, emergency room of education. These kids come here with trauma, all right? And it's just who we are. And with the trauma, sometimes in the ER, you have to prioritize. You got somebody that comes in that just got a gunshot wound. We had someone that just collapsed with a heart attack, and this guy just lost his leg in a motorcycle accident. And which one are we going to operate on first? And they're all three. So I think we have to begin with the end in mind of that. That's a big part of what we do. I have an unbelievable staff that are purpose-driven. That they know what they sign up for. This is very grueling and daunting work. It's like baseball. You fail more than you win in this game. And, it's a hard hat culture. And what I mean by it, Chad, is it's blue collar. Like it's construction worker. You got to come to work. You got to bring your lunch pail. You got to roll up your sleeves. You're going to get dirty. You're going to work in the wind and the rain. You're cold. You're going to work in 100-degree weather. And I tell people all the time, we build people, right? We don't build houses, we build people. And so it is simple in that aspect.
I love the ER for education. That's awesome. The emergency room for education. And just
really
before I segue into the second theme, just on that real quick, When you said ER, I think of nurses, right? Yeah, someone comes in with a gunshot wound, right? Or some traumatic event, right? And they have to keep their cool, right? And they have to keep their calm, right? And all this craziness is going on in the emergency room. Is that, for the listeners out there, do you have any thoughts on that? Like, because you're saying, especially your teachers, right, who are in the classroom and on the front line dealing with maybe kids, have behavioral problems, they want to get in a fight, they want to do this, they want to do that. How do you have any keys to keep your cool in a stressful situation, right? And I know you and I love the military and Navy SEALs and all that. It's like, how do you keep your cool when the bullets are flying? And I mean that, for leaders, for us as leaders, and again, our bullets may be different, right? It may be a meeting room, maybe a boardroom, or maybe your classroom. But do you have any thoughts on how you or your staff keep your cool, like when two kids are getting ready to start a fight in the classroom?
Well, for us, it's really easy. It comes down to our number one, what's our purpose? Why are we here, right? And what's our mission, vision, and values? I mean, that defines everything from a leadership, right? And sometimes it's okay, I believe, especially for leaders, that you have to wear many hats as leaders, and maybe once every year or whatever, knowing the situation, knowing your people, sometimes maybe you need to lose your cool. Maybe they need to know that this isn't okay. We got to get this ship in the right direction, right? But I believe if you have a very firm foundation of why you're here, what's your purpose, what's your platform, it's easy to deal with. And I would compare it to like working in hospice, right? If we're in hospice and I'm a doctor and a nurse and I go home every day crying saying, well, my outcomes are nobody's walking out of here. And it comes back to, what do you think you signed up for?
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And same way here, when you come to this at-risk youth, and we serve kids from 20 different districts, 8 different counties, right? And they're the highest needs of any kids around in our surrounding area. What do you think you signed up for, right? And it would be like you and I working in the ER and saying, it's every day somebody's coming in hurt. And you're like, what did you think you signed up for, right? So I think from a leadership standpoint, you have to really be able to articulate what your purpose is, what your platform is, what your mission, vision, and values are. And for me, man, it's real simple. You and I talk, we both have a strong Catholic faith.
Yeah.
I try to I'm not far from perfect, and I make more mistakes than anybody, but my purpose is hopefully I'm doing God's work, and I'm trying to use the gifts he gave me to serve people, the people that need it the most.
That's awesome. And that anchor, your purpose, vision, values, and faith. I'll throw that in there. Right? That's the anchor. That's to keep the cool. But it's interesting, if I'm hearing you right, Todd, if the leader, again, we'll talk all industries here, right? If the leader doesn't have that foundation, they're going to be done, right? They're going to be done in the ER room. They're going to be done in the classroom, done in the boardroom. And I mean that, if you don't have that anchor, I keep going back to your mission, purpose, and faith, because when the bullets fly, things go wrong quickly.
I believe that culture is number one. Culture beats strategy. Culture beats protocols. Culture beats money. I mean, and I say this, you look at a church and the church is overflowing, right? And there's people that can't get in the doors and they have to add on to the church. And all of a sudden that pastor of that church leaves or retires. And 6 months later, there's not that many people, right? You can replace the position. You can't replace the culture, the leadership style. So I think from a leadership standpoint, that knowing who you are and being able to truly define it. And then I think there's also 2 things in culture Chad is missing that our staff does a phenomenal job of. We have some cultural icons if you go to our website, and it defines what those represent. But we recognize and we also reward, and we also confront actions that don't align with that for staff, students, and families.
Got it. Let me pick up there, and that leads us into the second part, this leadership. I want to kind of pick your brain and talk about your creative leadership style and how you lead, at Foxfire. And that one is very interesting to me, Todd. And I've never explored this on the show, and I think a lot of people watching, especially business men and women, will find this interesting. Conflict, and I know you well enough, we go back years and years with our Zanesville roots. and I mean this as a compliment to you, Todd. I feel like you can deal with conflict. You even mentioned it earlier. You can raise your voice at the students. You can raise your voice at the staff. I feel you're always respectful, but you get your message across. And to me, this is just my impression of you. I definitely don't think you don't hide from conflict. And again, let me preface this before I throw it over. So much in work in America, I hear when I do my speaking tour, it's conflict is such a huge, the elephant in the room. They can never deal with the elephant in the room, right? In the boardroom, or this person's toxic, or this person's negative, right? I hear it over and over, and it just eats away at their culture. It eats away at everything. And, I just think conflict is avoided so often. And if you could talk about that or sharing stories or your thoughts, like, how do you deal with conflict? How do you not be scared of it? Because I just see it throughout this country. Yeah, conflict in the boardroom, in the meeting room, in the workplace is avoided most of the time.
Define what actions you're going to confront and what actions you're going to reward. And that's your culture, right? And it doesn't matter whether it's a great sales month or it's the worst sales month. It's the same. We recognize, and I'll put it in a sports thing. If I'm coaching and we're up 50 points, I'm still going to confront those actions that don't align with who we are. And if we're down 50 points, I'm going to recognize and say, that's a great job. I love your body language, right? And so for me, I got 2 type A OCD parents that laid the foundation, and they confront everything. They're both brutally honest people. And I learned from them that when you confront an action, it's not personal. Whether it's your best friend or your spouse or your children, you still love them, but the action, if somebody does something that doesn't align with who your family is, you're going to confront it, right? Or if you don't, it's going to spill out of control where you're going to fail. And I think the difference between flourish and failure is you've got to be willing to confront actions, but before you confront those actions, you daggone well better have defined what those actions are. This is who we are. This is what we live by. And I'll use a sports analogy. We lose every game during the season, but we are going to recognize this is what great, and this is what we're going to confront. But those values don't change, and it's not personal. If we say honesty is one of our values, and you're lying, you might be my best friend, but I'm going to confront it. Like, that's not acceptable. Or work ethic, and you're missing deadlines and you're showing up late to work all the time. As a leader, you lose credibility if you don't confront those.
Yeah, I love it. I really do. And just on this whole creative leadership, Todd, not taking it personal. I just want to dig a little bit deeper there. Again, this is a topic we've never explored. I think a lot of people have interest in this. So you're leading a team. Someone does an action that doesn't align with your vision, right? We're just using a generic, pretend we're company A. So one of your employees doesn't align with your vision, right? You're confronting him or her. And what I find more and more in work in America when I work with these companies is they say a lot of their employees do take it personal. When you call them out, person X didn't hit their numbers, right? Didn't hit their metrics. We call them out in our office. They take it very personal. They're very sensitive. They think we don't like them, right? Or they're targeted. So when you get that resistance, right, you call them out, it doesn't align with the vision, but then you get all this resistance back from them. Yeah, they're low self-esteem, they start pouting. Like, what's step 2 when that comes back at you?
Well, first of all, you have to have a relationship with that employee. That's number 1. And 2, part of your culture is that we confront actions, not people. And just because we confront the action, it's not a death sentence, right? Now, we're going to coach you and mentor you, and we have a mentoring program. And if you continue to not show growth, then obviously, and I always talk about Jim Collins' good to great, you have to, sometimes we don't have the people in the right seat on the bus, right? So we move them seats. And then sometimes there's just not a seat on the bus for them. They're on the wrong bus. And I believe that for you to do that, you, number 1, have to define that with those people. And then the other part is it's not personal. And I think if you confront, if you recognize and celebrate the good qualities they're doing, it goes hand in hand, and so they don't pout as much. All right. But I think that you have got to, as you are going to help people handle confrontation of confront, it has to be process driven. You talked about not meeting numbers. That's not process, that's outcome driven. Okay. And we'll put it in sports. If we get beat, I'm going to yell at you, but if you win, I don't say a word. All right. Process driven is, you're going to hustle. You're going to be a good teammate. When I take you out of the game, you're going to act a certain manner. When we get beat, you're going to act. And when you recognize those things in the midst of adversity, it goes a long ways when you have to confront. But everybody in corporate America wants to say, well, you're not meeting your numbers, or they send an email. Because most of the things people today are very impersonal, or the HR people send someone down to say, okay, you're fired. You have 10 minutes to get your stuff out. Typically, it's not the CEO having those conversations saying, this is the last step. Help me help you. I want this to be a win-win. So I think that you talk about avoidance, but it starts with the people at the top. You can't avoid the people you're firing.
I love it. Something you said that really hit me, and I know you and I both have a sports background. The game. That's awesome. You're right. Yeah. If we won the game, I don't say anything. We lose the game, I'm all over you. But that's not that. But you're right. That's not coaching. That's not leadership. You're right. It's the process. Whether you win or lose, it's the process throughout. Are they doing it the right way? Do they have the right techniques, the right plays, the right schemes? Are they, I'm thinking football with football coming up. But yeah, are they doing the schemes, the practices the correct way? You're right. It's the process, not the outcome. And yeah, just one last thing and then we'll segue away. But do you agree, Ty? I feel the culture we live in, again, for work in America, it seems to be, it's leading by outcome. Yeah, it's go back to the metrics, sales. Yeah, oh, this person didn't hit their numbers, so he or she isn't performing, they're not very good, but it's all outcome. It's like, oh, but if they hit their numbers, I don't need to coach them. They don't need additional training, right? They're just do their thing and let them be. But if they don't hit it, there's something really wrong with them. It's all outcome.
Well, if you check our mission, our website, the last statement says that success is a byproduct of embracing all these values. And I truly believe that, we've been fortunate. We were recognized as the U.S. Department of Education as the model alternative school in the United States, right? That's just a byproduct of what we do. I mean, you can do the right things, not win many games, and still have a great season. When I used to coach, I'd tell the kids, look, I can't guarantee you we're going to win any games. All right? So there was years where I thought we'd – but I can't guarantee it. What I can guarantee you, we're going to do things a certain way. We're going to care about each other. We're going to work really hard. And whether we win a lot of games or not, you will still look back at us and we can make this a great experience. And if you ask my staff, we're dealing with the most at-risk youth, and we get recognized because our test scores are pretty good. I tell them all the time, you'll never hear me yell about test scores. I only care about growth. So we benchmark twice a month, right? And we assess. If a kid comes into 7th grade and he reads at the 1st grade level, he damn well better read at the 2nd grade level by the end of the year. I don't expect you to get to 7th grade, but he better get better, right? If you and I pay for a personal trainer and after a year we've lost 1 pound and haven't made any gains in our maxes or 40 times, we better get a new trainer.
Yep. That's awesome. I love it. Till we're getting toward the end of the episode, let me give you a quote. I know you and I talked a little bit about it. I definitely want our listeners to let you riff on this. So the listeners out there, at the end of each show, I give our guests a quote that I find specific to their industry, and I let them kind of riff on it for 30 to 45 seconds, and then we wrap up. So, Todd, your quote is from Eminem, the rapper, right? Or a rapper from Detroit.
You picked this because you think I'm the real Slim Shady or what?
Oh, that's awesome. No, it had nothing to do with you. I was thinking the industry. I was thinking how far this guy has come. But it's interesting you say that. Let me give you this quote. Let me say it to the audience, and I'll let you riff on it. So, and I think everything you've talked about today just lines up beautifully with all the things you've talked about. So, Eminem, his quote: "I didn't have nothing going for me, school, home, until I found something I loved, which was music, and that changed everything." And Todd, I guess just one more thing, if I could add to that quote. Yeah, I will. Let me just start there. Let me read it one more time, let you riff, and then I have one segue. So Eminem's quote: "I didn't have anything going for me, school, home, until I found something I loved, which was music, and that changed everything." Give me 30 seconds. What does that mean to you?
Most of our students don't belong to anything when they get here. They're not on an athletic team. They're not on a powerlifting team. They're not in performing arts. They're not in band. They're not in choir. And they're lost. And I think like Eminem, when you find something that you're connected to and you fit in and you find people that are helping you grow, you find who you are and you find your platform in life. I think there's the 2 most important days of your life are when you're born. And the second one is the day that you find out why. And that's what Eminem's, when he found out, like, man, I'm somebody in this music industry. I really love it. I could be someone. I'm inspired. There was people that mentored him, that connected him. And that's what we try to do. We connect and mentor. We want kids to believe it. When you're connected to something you're interested in, the rest is easy, right? And just what you do for everyday living. I mean, this wasn't your dream or goal. All of a sudden, God leads you this path. You're connected and boom. And your passion is helping other people. You didn't know that your passion was helping other people.
It's awesome. Wow.
And one last thing, I know you got to go. We talk about outcome driven, right? Well, when we're 19, 20 years old, we're trying to chase a degree or career that does what? Status, fame, and money, right?
Yep.
And we finally keep it simple and say, look, really everything we do is about serving other people. It's a servanthood life. When you do that, then the outcomes come that you want.
That's awesome. Wow. I don't even have a segue. That's such a great answer, straight from the cuff. I love it. I love it. Well, everyone out there, that's the end of the Smash the Box episode with Mr. Todd Whiteman. And Todd, I mean it, man. Incredible guest, incredible content. Some of the things you talked about, as I wrap up here, and then if you have any final words, you please share them. A couple of things you said to me that really stuck home. Yeah, ER for education. Dealing with conflict head on, not avoiding it. And one last thing you said that really stuck with me. I think it's such a great point for leaders is you're saying there's not a seat on the bus for everybody. It's such a great point because, I hate to say it, in the society we live, we always want everyone to feel welcome and everyone gets a trophy, right? The whole book, everyone gets a trophy. But I think great leaders and what you're doing is what you're saying. You're always respectful. You're always coaching people. You're always trying to mentor them, like give them all the tools. But at some point, if someone just isn't in the right role or the right fit, they're not on the bus. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I don't think as leaders we have to be ashamed of that or feel bad. It's part of leading, and that's just one of the many things you said, but it stuck with me. So I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Truly have a ton of respect for you, and appreciate the opportunity to come on here. And you're doing amazing work, and you're impacting people's lives. And I'm trying to. I follow you because I want to grow myself. So I just want to say thanks. Give a shout out to you.
I appreciate it. Awesome. Hey, thank you, Todd. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and we'll see you soon. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.